I am Michael Jackson, Lead Business Development Officer with EXIM Bank's Minority and Women-Owned Business Team. This is part 2 of a 2-part webinar series. Just a quick recap. On part 1, I provided an executive overview of EXIM Bank and reviewed some of our programs for small businesses, particularly minority and women-owned businesses. I was also joined by my colleague Rafael Patino, Commercial Attaché with the U.S. Commercial Service Office in the U.S. Embassy in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, who provided information on U.S. Commercial Services programs and also a kind of a regional overview of the Caribbean market. Today, I'm joined by several speakers, but before I introduce our speakers, I also want to acknowledge my co-host, Ms. Gwendolyn Siegel with CCAA. Gwen?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really grateful to be here and represent Caribbean Central American Action this afternoon. We've been very pleased with the past couple of weeks and collaborating with Michael and the team here at EXIM Bank and hosting these webinars. We have learned quite a bit about the size of the Caribbean market, and we hope that you all grasp not just how important it is to continue doing trade with the Caribbean region, but also learn more about what opportunities are out there and how, between all of us, we can help increase business to the region. So, hope this is a great webinar for everybody, and please ask questions.
Yes, ask lots of questions. Thank you, Gwen. So today, I'm joined by Alison Germack, Director of Corporate Development at the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, or OPIC. I'm also joined by Peter Greenwood, Country Manager for Latin America and the Caribbean at the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, or USTDA, and also my very own EXIM colleague, Craig O'Connor, Director of Business Development for Renewable Energy here at EXIM. Just a quick note, the presentations that you'll see today, as well as our speakers' bios, are attached at the bottom right hand of your screen in the attachments section. And just another note as well, the team at CCAA will be providing a copy of the recording via your YouTube channel, and you'll also get an email blast as well with a recording of today's webinar. If you were registered for part 1, you should have gotten that email as well. So just a few housekeeping items before I introduce my first speaker. If you need to ask a question, please go ahead and type your questions in. There'll be a period of time. We'll save the last 10 minutes or so for Q&A. Feel free as we go to write in your questions, but just note that questions will be addressed at the end, and the order of presentations will be Alison, then Peter, then Craig. And I won't take the time to actually read everyone's bio. Again, they're available for you as attachments. So without further ado, I want to introduce Alison Germack with OPIC.
Great.
Alison?
Thank you, Michael. Such a pleasure to be with all of you this afternoon. I want to just quickly begin by thanking EXIM and CCAA for inviting OPIC to be part of this webinar. And I'm looking forward to hearing all your questions. So in light of the fact that we want to make sure we have enough time for questions, I'm going to move through my slides fairly quickly. I'm also grateful to hear that you have access to them after the fact, but here we go. So for those of you on the phone that may not be very familiar with OPIC, I'm going to give you a 60-second introduction, high-level introduction to who we are. Despite the strange-sounding name, we are a U.S. government agency, and our job is to facilitate and support U.S. private sector investment into developing countries and emerging markets. So more specifically, what we do is we provide a suite of financial products, namely financing and insurance, to U.S. companies or American investors to help them either set up or expand an overseas business venture. Now, if you look at the map on the screen in front of you, you'll notice that a bunch of these countries are shaded in the color blue. These are the roughly 160 countries where OPIC programs are generally available. And you'll note that most of them are low or middle income countries. That is our geographic focus. We want to focus our support for investments in markets where there are tremendous opportunities to have an impact, but oftentimes the financial resources available to U.S. companies, to American investors, to access them is very limited. So that's the role that we play, is essentially stepping in and filling a gap in the financial market. Of the 160 countries where we have the ability to provide support, we presently have projects ongoing in about 100 of those, totaling a portfolio of $21.5 billion. And as you'll see as we go through the slides, because OPIC provides its support in the form of financial products like financing and insurance, and we charge a fee for those services, OPIC actually pays its way. We operate at no net cost to the American taxpayer. I think it's sometimes helpful to give an example to illustrate what it is that OPIC does and how we can be helpful to a small business, an American small business. In this example that I have profiled here on the slide, OPIC about 10 years ago was approached by a California-based company by the name of Sambazon. You may have seen their juice products in your grocery store in the perishable section, but essentially Sambazon produces berry juice from the acai berry. And to process acai berries into berry juice, you need to have a processing facility close to the source of harvest. And in this case, that would be Brazil, where acai berries are grown. Unfortunately for Sambazon, while they wanted to set up a processing facility in Brazil, they found it very difficult to find a bank that was willing to provide them the financing they needed to construct a processing facility, have the necessary working capital to operate it, and otherwise be able to process their berries. And so OPIC ultimately reviewed their application and provided them a $3.7 million loan. It's a great success story for us. As a result of OPIC's support, Sambazon was able to establish the facility. They've more than doubled their business size, creating jobs both in Brazil and California, and they repaid their loan in full with interest to OPIC. So hopefully that example serves to illustrate the different types of ways that OPIC might be able to provide support to an American small business. So that loan product that I described, that represents about 3/4 of our portfolio. These are loans that we're making to, again, help establish or expand an existing business in a foreign market. We can do small loans, and we can do loans up to $250 million per project for large infrastructure projects. The other product that we offer that I wanted to mention is political risk insurance. Political risk insurance is essentially a product that can be very helpful to U.S. companies or U.S. investors that have concern about political risk associated with making an overseas investment. So perhaps you're looking at setting up a business or entering into an overseas contract, and you're comfortable with commercial risks like market risk, operational risk, but you're concerned about political risk. What happens if war breaks out and there's damage to your company assets or loss of business income? What happens if a government expropriates or nationalizes your business? Or what happens if you try to get your earnings out of the country, repatriate your profits, or convert your earnings from local currency to U.S. dollars, and the country's government prevents you from doing that? These are different types of political risks that OPIC can provide some protection against by providing you with an insurance policy, so that if you encounter this type of activity, you can file a claim with OPIC like you would on an automobile insurance policy or a homeowner's policy. And then finally, I'll touch on very briefly, we do also provide financing to private equity and debt fund managers. I don't know if any of those types of entities are represented on the call today, but if you are raising money as part of a pooled investment vehicle and look to provide downstream loans or investments to companies in the Caribbean or elsewhere. Happy to talk more about what kinds of programs we have to work with fund managers. In the Caribbean, OPIC is authorized to support investments in about 17 different states. Right now, we've got just under $350 million outstanding to projects across the region, and historically have committed over $3 billion to the region. We have a whole variety of sectors that we've supported. In lieu of going through the list in detail, in the interest of time, I'll just highlight a couple. We've supported a wind farm in Jamaica, and we've also supported a company in Haiti that produces concrete. We're also actively looking at investments in sectors like agribusiness and agriculture, affordable housing, environmental technologies, and franchising is another sector globally where we've been quite active. All projects that receive OPIC support, whether it's financing or insurance, are required to meet a variety of different policy standards. First and foremost, any investment we support cannot cause an adverse or negative impact on the U.S. economy or U.S. workforce. So if you're looking at outsourcing or doing any sort of offshoring of American business, we are prohibited by law from supporting that type of investment. Anything we support has to be additional to any existing U.S. operations. And then, of course, we're also looking to support investments that we think are going to have a very positive developmental impact in the country. So we prioritize our resources to projects we think are going to have the strongest impact. To that end, we also evaluate our projects to ensure that they comply with international standards related to environmental safeguards and workers' rights. On the right side of the screen, I have pulled out for you a couple of the key eligibility criteria for OPIC-supported investments. As you can imagine, because our clients are going to have to be able to pay a fee associated with our products, the project itself must be self-sustaining, must be commercially viable. We'll evaluate your business plan to that end. We also look for a management team that has a proven track record of success in the industry. And we also look to ensure that private sector financing is not available for your project. So if you can show that there is bank financing available, we're not going to necessarily come in and compete with a private lender. Rather, we're looking to fill gaps where we're needed. We also require, as a U.S. government agency, that the U.S. private sector is meaningfully involved in the project. The way that requirement is met varies a little bit between our product offerings. For example, if you're looking for OPIC insurance, we can only offer insurance to American investors, U.S. investors, and companies that are majority owned by U.S. persons. With financing, we have a bit more flexibility. We look at the overseas entity that's going to benefit from OPIC financing, and we would look for at least 25% of the equity capital to come from U.S. sources. There are also some other ways in which we can achieve a sufficient U.S. connection to allow us to finance a project. Again, in the interest of time, I won't go through all of them, but to give you an example, with respect to franchising, if a foreign entity is looking at obtaining a U.S. franchise and is looking for OPIC financing to open, say, a number of Dunkin' Donut outlets or KFC outlets, because it's an American brand, we can actually provide financing to the franchisee directly. As I said, we've worked across sectors. So food processing in Brazil is the example that I gave at the beginning of the presentation. We've worked with an oil and gas services company in Colombia. We've worked with a logistics technology company in India, and a company in actually Maryland that has been working in Iraq for the last number of years. So very diverse sectors, diverse countries. All of these examples, though, are U.S. small businesses. U.S. small businesses represent about 3/4 of our overall portfolio, so we're very much eager and able to provide support to the small business community. My final slide is just a list of some additional resources that are available to you. We have a Getting Started section on our website that's quite helpful, including a couple of eligibility checklists to help you determine whether a particular project you may be considering could be a good fit for any of our product offerings. We also have a workshop series that we do. We go around the country with our friends at EXIM Bank, TDA, and others, and meet one-on-one with American companies to help explain our services. Our next workshop is actually coming up next week in New York City, and I've included the link on the slide if that's of interest to anyone on today's call. And then finally, my contact information is there. I hope that I'll be able to address any questions you'd like to pose after today's presentation. But if you have questions after today, I'm certainly available to speak with you. So with that, I'll end there and turn it back over to Mike.
Thank you so much, Allison. Great presentation. I want to go straight away to Mr. Peter Greenwood with USTDA to talk about TDA's programs and activities in the Caribbean region.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you, EXIM. Thank you, CCAA, for jointly hosting this webinar. It's our pleasure at USTDA to participate in this webinar. As Michael mentioned, my name is Peter Greenwood. I am the country manager at USTDA for Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. So today I'd like to discuss a little bit about what we do, what we've done in the Caribbean, and what we seek to be doing in the future. But also, I think the purpose here also is to really get everyone acquainted on the line with what we do. We're a smaller agency, and so it's always nice to have these moments where we can introduce our operations and how we can support U.S. businesses. USTDA is a federal government agency, and we are essentially tasked with linking U.S. businesses to overseas infrastructure projects. We help to drive export of U.S. goods and services into high-growth emerging markets. What that translates to, particularly in the Caribbean, are those markets that are classified by the World Bank as low and middle-income countries. Our particular markets of focus, although we look at any market that really falls within that classification, but our markets of particular focus tend to be Dominican Republic, Jamaica, as well as Haiti. And I'll go through some examples as we go through the presentation. Throughout our history at USTDA, we have a very unique and actually exceptional record in supporting U.S. exports in these markets. Actually, for every $1 that USTDA puts towards its project funding, we see a return on that programmatic funding of $85 in U.S. exports. And that is, again, since our inception, and it's interesting to see that ratio multiply itself throughout the markets in which we operate in. The U.S. Trade and Development Agency, again, we are an independent U.S. government agency operating in growing emerging markets, and we're primarily tasked with helping U.S. companies export into those markets and become competitive in those infrastructure projects in those markets. What are the infrastructure sectors that we discuss, or that I'm discussing, that we look towards? Essentially, we're looking for opportunities where U.S. goods and services and businesses can be competitive in the transportation, energy, and telecommunication sectors. We look to support those growing industries, those particular priority infrastructure projects in those markets through positioning U.S. goods and services in public procurement, but also through private industry and their needs in those markets as well too, and how U.S. industry can provide solutions to that. Essentially, we link U.S. companies through three strategic axes, if you will. We provide access to these markets for U.S. businesses, we provide opportunity, and we provide, obviously, support as well. Let's start with the first, which is providing access to foreign buyers. We provide direct access to foreign buyers in these markets through a unique program which we entitle Reverse Trade Missions. These reverse trade missions are programs in which We see in our markets that there are upcoming procurements and that U.S. industry can be competitive and U.S. businesses can be competitive. We invite delegates and representatives from the public and private sector of those markets to the United States to essentially understand U.S. products and services, how they can be solutions to the needs of the public and private sector and their infrastructure projects in those markets, but also understanding the United States regulatory environment and how regulators in those markets can also become more familiar how U.S. solutions can operate under improved regulatory structures. An example of a reverse trade mission that we've done, particularly with the Caribbean countries, was last year we did an energy technology for water utilities. This was essentially a reverse trade mission not only for the Caribbean but for Central America. And then we brought water utilities to Washington, D.C., where they were able to tour different sites in the D.C. area, the water utility in D.C., but also go throughout the country and visit different sites, and as well learn from different regulators, applicable regulators at the federal, state, and local levels here as well too, of how the U.S. can be a solution provider to their needs. Another RTM that we recently completed for the Caribbean as well was a cybersecurity for gas and electric utilities, which was very interesting. And this really is a unique opportunity not only for U.S. business to participate in these reverse trade missions, as we do have business briefing sessions where U.S. industry can come and participate and meet foreign buyers one-on-one, but it's also a unique opportunity where U.S. business can generate further business and partnerships with USTDA and executing projects in these markets. We also sponsor sector-specific conferences and workshops, whether it be a particular theme, a particular geography, or a particular technology. These are more punctual in nature and less general than a RTM, and they do serve the purpose of a great business development for U.S. business in these markets in which we're operating. USTDA also provides U.S. businesses with the opportunity to be involved in overseas projects. We are, as we're not only a U.S. business promoter, we're also a project planner in these markets. What does that mean? As OPIC is a financier of projects, infrastructure and enterprise corporate finance projects, we are on the infrastructure side of some of those projects where we are looking at providing early-stage project planning support. That early-stage project planning support can come in the realm of technical assistance, feasibility studies, as well as pilot projects. Technical assistance essentially is a program in which we are looking to support improvements and changes in the legal and regulatory environment in the markets where we work in, establishing industry standards in those markets, and opening up other market activities such as designing of innovative financing mechanisms for further project implementation down the road as the project moves into financing. And a recent example of a technical assistance that we have performed would be with the National Water Utility in Jamaica, where we're essentially doing a survey of their facilities and looking to see what their energy needs are, essentially doing an energy audit, and then providing a financing model for renewable energy technologies and energy efficiency improvements, so they can then go to either the development banking community, EXIM, or the commercial banking community to obtain financing and utilize that mechanism that we are designing for them. Feasibility studies. USTDA funds, just as we fund technical assistance, we fund feasibility studies that are completed by U.S. technical and engineering firms. These are feasibility studies that look towards infrastructure projects in the telecom, energy, and transport sectors. Here we are looking essentially to see how U.S. solutions can be not only a engineering solution. It can not only be an engineering solution for that market, but also we can also provide some type of procurement solutions as the project moves forward into financing. An example of our feasibility study that we recently completed was in Haiti, where we were looking at a survey of approximately 88 sites for microgrids and ranking the viability of those microgrids for prepaid microgrids and doing a complete feasibility study analysis of that. That project went on to obtain financing and is currently in its implementation. Pilot projects are essentially another branding of, Pilot projects are another branding of our feasibility studies in which there's a commercially proven U.S. technology and a U.S. firm would like to bring that technology into a market, into the Caribbean or any other market that USTDA supports, and that there is an ample foreign buyer that's looking to implement that technology. So USTDA also provides U.S. businesses with support for competing in international tenders. We do this through an innovative program that we've established called the Global Procurement Initiative. This program was established in conjunction with George Washington University as well as with the World Bank, in which we are essentially trying to level the, I'm jumping the gun on my presentation here, where essentially we are looking to level the playing field for U.S. firms. In this particular program, we have a 2 to 3 day conference in country where we invite all of the procurement officials from that country and provide seminars on life cycle costing analysis, on best value. So determinations on procurement are not only based on cost, but also on the longevity of a product. This GPI program also includes a study tour here in the United States where those procurement officials are also coming to the United States to learn from not only procurement practices here, but also working with our George Washington counterparts and understanding a little bit more in depth into the life cycle cost analysis and how to integrate that into their procurement process. USDA also provides market intelligence, which includes trade leads, webinars, and our final reports of all of our studies are made public on our public library to anyone who would like to consume them and take them either from a supplying perspective or also from a project finance implementation perspective as well. As mentioned before, USDA's priority sectors are transportation, energy, telecommunication. In the Caribbean, that's where we are. We really see a ample opportunity across these sectors, particularly in the energy and the telecom sectors. And this is not exclusive for energy, not exclusive to renewable energy. We look into renewable energy. We have obviously the examples I provided today are renewable energy, but also looking towards more traditional forms of energy as well too. And in telecom as well too, we see a lot of opportunity in the laying of fiber optic networks in the Caribbean, which is very interesting for us as well too. USDA's funding criteria is very, very simple. Number one, the project has to be a development priority in the country where we are operating in. The project does have to have some type of financial viability. We look to have some type of local sponsor backing that this project has a will to move forward, and that there's mutual benefits. Mutual benefits essentially meaning that we like to see that there is ample opportunity for the U.S. to export and be competitive in the infrastructure project. In our fiscal year 2016, USDA's results were around $3 billion in new exports identified from the projects we supported, about 18,000 U.S. jobs. From inception to date, from the beginning of USDA's operations, we've supported essentially $57 billion in exports. And as we've mentioned before, that multiplier of 85 to 1. USDA, although being a smaller agency, do have a presence, global presence. We're based in Arlington, Virginia, right across the river from our friends at OPIC and EXIM, but we have offices in Miami, Los Angeles. We also have representatives, obviously, in Brazil and Sub-Saharan Africa and East Asia. For further information, just as Allison mentioned for herself, I have an open line of communication. My email is pgreenwood@ustda.gov. Would love to respond to any of your questions, inquiries, if you have project ideas, or you'd like to dive in deeper into what USCDA does and how we may be able to support your business. We'd be happy to entertain those inquiries. So thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you very much, Peter. That was a very informative presentation. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Craig O'Connor, my colleague here at EXIM Bank, and he's going to be talking about EXIM's renewable energy and water projects in the Caribbean. Craig?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Michael. Thanks very much for organizing this. So actually, Michael, for some reason I'm not seeing my, here's the slide. So what I'm going to focus on today is financing renewable energy and water projects in the Caribbean. And obviously energy is a big issue throughout the region. And so we'll address some of the ways that EXIM Bank can finance projects in the region. And also, I think, interestingly, for you all is some of the case studies. So Michael, if there's a way to advance the slide, yeah, that's perfect. So EXIM Bank, just as an overview, independent agency established during the Roosevelt administration as part of the New Deal, established in 1934 to finance the export of U.S.-made goods and services, and we've been at this quite a long time. So for us, it's U.S. content. The ownership of the exporter doesn't have to be U.S., but as long as the products are made in the U.S., we can finance both products and services. We do this through a number of different ways. Direct loans, and that's a direct loan from EXIM Bank, long-term fixed-rate financing, U.S. dollars. We do loan guarantees, which is very much applicable to what I would say the under $20 million project sector, and that's full faith and credit, 100% U.S. government guarantee of repayment of a loan that a commercial bank might make, and this ensures that there's pretty good competition for banks offering financing for loans that are guaranteed by EXIM Bank. So the terms can be longer and the interest rates lower than they otherwise would be. And then export credit insurance is where U.S. companies can offer direct supplier credit to customers throughout the Caribbean. And working capital guarantees is applicable for U.S. companies that need to gear up to meet obligations under an export order. So EXIM Bank is congressionally chartered. So we're what's called a sunset agency. So every 4 or 5 years or so, we get a new charter from Congress. We're chartered through 2020, and by the charter, EXIM Bank is given certain priorities by the Congress, and we've had a language in our charter since 1992 to increase our support for environmentally beneficial exports, and that includes both renewable energy, water treatment, waste mitigation, and beyond the charter, EXIM Bank is also a member of the OECD group of export credit agencies, and so as a group, the export credit agencies have determined that we should increase our support for renewable energy and also water treatment. And so we can support repayment terms, loan terms of up to 18 years, and finance local costs up to 30% within the U.S. scope of supply. So to give you a quick example of how this might work, if there's a $10 million export order from the United States, there's always a 15% cash payment that the buyer makes to the supplier. That's an OECD rule. And so EXIM Bank, in this example, would finance $8.5 million, but because of the local costs, we're able to add up to $3 million in this example. So on $10 million worth of U.S. exports, we could lend $11.5 million or guarantee a loan of $11.5 million. And then capitalization of interest during construction, and this could be significant if you have large projects that have a fairly long construction time. So some of the results since 2010, my lender has authorized over $2 billion in renewable energy exports, a few of those in the Caribbean, and that I'll discuss shortly, and $400 million in water treatment exports. And I can tell you unequivocally, and Michael and I wish we worked on commission sometimes, but we don't. So I can tell you unequivocally that EXIM Bank will be the most cost-effective source of U.S. dollar financing. So give you an idea what this looks like. And actually, we just set our new rates for effective June 15th. So the new rates for 18 years will be 3.5% fixed, and the 12-year rate will be even lower than that. So we'll go to the next slide. EXIM Bank, one of the constants is obviously something I mentioned before, is U.S.-made goods and services. The other one is that we look for a reasonable assurance of repayment, and that could be through a corporate borrowing approach where we look at the creditworthiness of the borrower, and based on their financial condition, as evidenced by their financial statements, current credit report, and bank reference, we have certain parameters that we look at and determine that, yes, the buyer is creditworthy for the amount that they want to borrow. When I joined the bank, and I've been at the bank almost 25 years, but when I joined the bank in January of '93, most of our business with international business in terms of dollar amounts was with Ministry of Finance guarantees, so sovereign government guarantees. So we still do that, but in a much more limited way than we did previously. So these days, most of our business is with the private sector. And even large infrastructure projects, which is a segue into number 2, limited recourse project finance, where EXIM Bank will lend, and our source of repayment is based on the cash flows that are generated by the project. So an energy project, for example, where the payment is based on the energy produced and the energy bought and paid for. Or number 3 is more of a hybrid approach, which is a kind of a mix between corporate finance and project finance, where maybe the transaction is a little bit smaller and can't really support the legal and due diligence costs for project finance, because in project finance you have contracts that support both power sales, for example, or a concession agreement or supply contract. And so that takes some heavy due diligence in terms of analyzing the contracts. Well, structured finance may be where you've got a smaller sized borrower that maybe on their own couldn't qualify for a loan, but you've got a nice contract, and so we can perhaps capture some of the payments in a bank account and some other structuring elements that would help us arrive at a determination of reasonable assurance of repayment. We'll go to the next slide. So one of the projects that we're proud of was the Barbados solar roof project, and this was actually similar in an event like this. It was a Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum, the CREF, which is a really good event. So a year before, we'd met the CFO of Williams Industries in Barbados, a big industrialist in the region. Some of you may have heard of them. In this case, their goal really was, first and foremost, to save money, and they determined quickly that because of the high cost of electricity from the grid, or using their backup diesel generator, they could actually save money by going solar. And so this was, I think, one of the first large-scale solar projects in Barbados, and one of the largest ever Caribbean solar roof projects. And so this was Solar World of Germany, which is a German company, but they manufacture solar panels in Oregon. So there are some U.S. solar manufacturers, right? It's not all just the Chinese. And so in this case, we had a discussion with David Staples, who's the CFO of Williams, and described, as I'm describing to you this afternoon, the different approaches. And because it was a smaller size dollar amount transaction, I advised him to go through the loan guarantee route, because you've got a bank that will actually submit the application to EXIM Bank, work with the borrower. They have their own house legal group to work out the loan agreement documentation. And so in this case, they selected PNC Bank based on term sheet offers that they'd had from PNC among other different banks. And in this case, the application came into the loan officer. They analyzed the creditworthiness of Williams Industries, and the deal was approved probably in about 60 days. And so this is providing significant energy costs, and it probably paid for itself in less than 10 years, and so it was a pretty good deal. You get 10 years very cost-effective financing, but it also helps your business because you're saving money from the grid. So it's a win-win. And by the way, we're seeing more storage as well. So batteries. There's a report that McKinsey just released yesterday or the day before. If anybody's interested in the report, I can forward it to you. Just send Michael an email, where it shows that the cost of battery technology has gone down from $1,000 a megawatt in 2010 to to $230 today. And so in terms of kilowatts, that's about 23 cents a kilowatt, which is really cost effective. And so for the Caribbean, if you combine solar with storage, it's very much a winning combination. And we've got storage exporters. We've got Tesla, we've got Levo. There's a number of energy storage providers in the U.S. So maybe we'll look at the next slide. Mexico does have a Caribbean coast, so I took a little bit of liberties on this one. So water treatment. This is Biomicrobics of Kansas City. It makes these modular standalone water treatment systems. And the nice thing about water treatment systems is you don't have to build an enormous water treatment plant and run pipes and concrete to different locations. So you can do it. It's almost on site. It's much like you have distributed energy with solar and storage. Now you have distributed water treatment. And so in this case, AquaPro is a leading Mexican environmental company that, not a big company, but they provided services. And so AquaPro won a contract with a large retailer in Mexico, actually one of the world's largest retailers, Walmart of Mexico, in case you're curious. And so much like a lot of companies, Walmart is not interested in owning water treatment plants, but they are interested in getting the wastewater treated. And so in this case, AquaPro had a contract to build, install, and operate 10 water treatment plants for Walmart. And so we took a more structured financing approach. We looked at AquaPro. Most of their capital was in the human capital of the engineers that worked there. So experienced company, not a huge balance sheet, but we understood where the contract was, and so we're able to gain comfort on that. So another 10-year loan guarantee, also local cost support, and definitely a winning combination. So we'll go to the next slide. Another example. So this is another example of wind power. This is Gamesa, is a Spanish company, but at the time they had a manufacturing operation in Pennsylvania. Now Gamesa has been merged with Siemens. Siemens is a German company, of course, but they manufacture wind turbines in Kansas. And so I think the example still holds in terms of wind projects in the Caribbean. And by the way, EXIM Bank doesn't have a minimum project size, nor do we have a maximum project size. So we can do very, very small projects, certainly in our insurance division, and we don't have typically don't have country limits, we don't have size limits, and so we're demand-driven entities, so we obviously welcome opportunities like this in terms of letting folks know what we can offer in the hopes that this might generate more demand for U.S.-made goods and services. So in this case, EXIM Bank was financing a project sponsor, Mesoamerica, who had won a contract to supply power to Costa Rica, and ICE is their electric utility under a 20-year power purchase agreement. And in this case, it was 25 Gamesa wind turbines. It was a $61 million direct loan, 17 years, along with the local costs as well. Now, Costa Rica is a country that, by design, and has mandated that they want to get 100% of their energy from renewable sources. And I think if they're not at 100% now, they're really close. Of course, they're blessed with a lot of hydroelectricity, but to mitigate that and to go further, they've incorporated a lot of wind and a lot of solar. So in this case, this is our first wind transaction in Costa Rica, and it was also named the Latin American Wind Deal of the Year in 2013, so fairly proud of that. In this case, again, it was a project finance deal where we looked at the experience of the project sponsor. So Mesoamerica had built, owned, and operated wind projects throughout the Caribbean. In fact, we financed an earlier deal of theirs in Honduras. So they knew what they were doing. We had a credit-worthy buyer of the electricity in ICE. We had proven technology in Gamesa's turbines. It was the wind resource was adequately measured, and so all the risk elements were addressed and mitigated, and this project has worked out very well. And in fact, when you compare it to what Costa Rica would have paid had it imported diesel fuel, bunker fuel, to fire, oil-fired power projects, it probably came in at half the cost. And so this is an important point, I think, for energy users in the Caribbean, and Caribbean governments, frankly, is with wind turbines. I mean, you're getting a 30-year fuel price hedge. It doesn't matter what happens to the price of natural gas or oil or anything else. Basically, you know what your cost of fuel is going to be, 30 years from now, which is a great comfort. Same with solar, and you've got long-term warranties on this equipment. It works. It's proven, and so this is a big advantage. What we're seeing also with renewables is that the price continues to shrink. The productivity of the equipment continues to expand, and so we see now that in many cases, solar, even in the United States, in many cases, is the cheapest source of energy anywhere. And if you combine that with storage, it's a really powerful combination. So we'll go to the next slide. So export credit insurance, I mentioned before, enables U.S. companies to offer short, medium-term credit directly to their customers. So maybe you have a distributor in St. Lucia, for example. St. Regis Electronics was a past customer, and this way they're able to get export credit insurance either up to 90 days or 180 days, or if it's capital goods, up to 360 days. And that's a credit line that they receive from the U.S. supplier. Because of EXIM Bank's insurance, the supplier doesn't have to wait 180 days, 360 days to get paid. They can go to their bank in the United States and assign their U.S. government-insured receivables to their bank and get financing right away. So it's a risk mitigation for U.S. exporter. It's also a win for the company in the Caribbean. So go to the next slide. So Environmental Dynamics is the company out of Columbia, Missouri, that's used multi-buyer insurance to offer customers credit open account. Open account means that Environmental Dynamics ships the equipment and the buyer promises to pay. So there's no paperwork beyond that. It's just Environmental Dynamics has an invoice of the bill of lading they have a shipping documentation. They have an invoice, and essentially they record their shipments to EXIM Bank and pay a premium rate. We're very transparent. It's 0.65%. So on $100,000, that's what, like $650 or $65. I can't do the math anymore. So you can see it's very cost effective, much more cost effective than if the local customer would have to go to their bank and take out a loan. So they've been very successful in water treatment, and I think that they have some projects in Grenada as well as other countries. So I think we've got one final slide.
Sure, Craig, go ahead.
Okay, and working capital guarantee is more meant for U.S. exporters that maybe are small businesses, and the source of repayment on their loan is an overseas receivable. And so EXIM Bank actually provides the lending bank a 90% repayment guarantee for loans that bank would make to small businesses to gear up for export. But it also is a benefit to customers in the Caribbean too, because now the U.S. exporter is in a better position to extend credit. So that concludes my remark. I know we need to leave a few times for questions. So we're interested in any size projects. Part of what we do is work with U.S. companies. We work with international customers to determine the approach to credit, and welcome any ideas and questions that you might have. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Craig, for that great presentation. Just to note, we're going to move into the question and answer period at this point. If we get questions that go beyond the 3 o'clock hour, no worries, we can go beyond. We want to make sure that we take all of your questions. So let's see what type of questions we have. So looks like one question we have is, I have an interest in a company in Jamaica. We're having a hard time identifying a bank in the U.S. that will do an EXIM loan to Jamaica. Contacted a few banks for a document about EXIM, but hadn't had much luck. They are a 7-country risk. Whom can I contact regarding this issue, Craig?
Well, I think, Michael, why don't you be the initial point of contact, and then I've got a list of banks that we can, we don't recommend one or another, but I know banks, I've got a list of about 5 or 6 that are pretty active in that space. So why don't we schedule a call or email, and we'll try to get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely. So please go ahead and shoot me an email, or my email is michael.jackson@exim.gov, or you can call me directly at 202-565-3479. And happy to coordinate a call with Craig and other interested parties here at EXIM to help you out. Okay. We have another question coming in. Financial statements, do they have to be prepared by U.S. accounting firms? Does that work?
Only if it's over $1 million. And they don't have to be prepared by U.S. accounting firms. They just need to be audited by an internationally recognized firm. And that's only if it's over $1 million.
Thanks, Greg. Okay. We'll give a few more seconds for anyone has any other additional questions. Feel free to type them in. Again, the box on the right-hand side of your screen. Don't be shy. We had 3 wonderful presenters today. Okay, another one just came in. Do you work with any social enterprises or NGOs, and do the corporations have to be? Do the companies have to be corporations? I guess this is for all of our speakers.
Sure. So with respect to OPIC, we can actually provide financing or insurance to nonprofit organizations, NGOs. They are typically expected to be set up in the United States so that they have like a 501c3. But the activity that they are undertaking in the foreign market should have some sort of revenue stream to either pay the loan or to pay, in the case of insurance, pay the premium payment. But we do have a number of nonprofit organizations, NGOs, that we have supported over the years. So we do have a good track record in that respect.
This is Peter Green with USTDA, and yes, we can work with nonprofit organizations as well. Only caveat to that, I think it's the same as OPIC, is that we would like to see that once our project support is finalized via feasibility study or technical assistance, that we see that the project has a revenue stream for implementation and can obtain project financing.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, Allison. Next question. We have somebody working on a water treatment program in Lake Chapala, Jalisco. They want to learn more about studies that have been made for that area. Do any of our panelists, are any of our panelists familiar with that project?
Again, this is Peter from USTDA. I'm not familiar with that particular project, but we do have active partners in Jalisco, and I would be excited to speak with this individual offline as well too. That we have not completed a study, and not sure of studies regarding this particular water treatment program, but obviously water is a essential need in Mexico at this juncture. So would be happy to discuss that further.
I know they have your contact info on the slide. So would you mind reiterating?
Oh yes, my contact information is pgreenwood, GREENWOOD, at USTDA.gov.
And this one, I think, goes out to all the panelists. How do you go about working with private equity firms?
So with respect to OPIC, we do, if you are a private equity fund manager and you're looking for assistance from OPIC, we do accept proposals on a rolling basis that we batch quarterly and review as a cohort and select particular funds out of that cohort to support with debt financing. If you're interested to learn more, feel free to shoot me an email, allison.germack@opic.gov, and I can explain more about that process. It's a little bit different than the process that we use for applicants to our insurance or our loan financing program. If, however, the question is referring to how do you as a company access investment from a private equity fund, while we don't at OPIC necessarily have a specific service that we offer to link you up to or match you to a private equity investor, we do have an online platform called Aligned Capital. You can find it on our website by searching Aligned Capital in the search field. And it's a web-based platform where you can upload information about the company or the project you're undertaking and be considered by a number of investor or investor-like entities on the platform for investment. So OPIC doesn't link you. It's kind of like the Match.com of the equity world, if you will. But it is a resource available to you to get connected in with organizations that may be able to help.
Right, and from USTDA's perspective, we are more than happy to entertain proposals or thoughts from private equity fund portfolio companies if they're looking at implementing a particular infrastructure project related to their operations or otherwise. USTDA's support goes to both the public and the private sector. So again, if there are portfolio companies that private equity fund has, we'd be happy to look at their needs as well. From a financing standpoint, we are also able to share the completed studies that we have supported with particular asset fund managers, particularly infrastructure asset fund managers.
Okay, thanks. Next question. This person is asking about other industries besides alternative industries. And I know our presenters earlier talked about, Allison talked about OPIC support for agribusiness as well as hotels and franchises. I know Peter talked about TDA's focus not only in the energy sector but in transportation and ICT. So to the panelists, did I miss anything? Are there any other sectors that that I didn't just state that you cover?
As far as OPIC is concerned, we have, as I said, a capability to look at projects in a whole variety of sectors. I think between my comments and yours, Michael, recapping, that I think reflects some of the big priority areas for us. But having said that, if you have a project or an investment in a sector that we did not mention, certainly still feel free to reach out to us. I would say we have a pretty diverse portfolio, and if it's a developmental project and a project that's commercially viable, we'd be interested to hear about it.
And from USDA's perspective, I would echo OPIC's comments as well and accentuate that above the three priority sectors for us, water is a very interesting sector, water-related technologies, as well as environmental mitigation technologies as well too, especially those that correlate with the energy sector.
And as far as EXIM goes, I know Craig talked specifically about renewable energy and water projects, and I covered on part one. I discussed what, for those of you who weren't on part one, I discussed EXIM's support for really a broad spectrum of sectors from traditional energy, renewable energy, aircraft and avionics, manufacturing and services as well. So we at EXIM Bank really covered the gamut. and there's a question. So evidently, some of you, it seems that some of you are having trouble downloading copies of the bios. I will get the bios to you. If you are having trouble downloading the bios, I will be happy to send you all or resend you all the bios. Sometimes technology doesn't work the way it's supposed to, so we understand that you may not be able to download the attachment. Let's see. Okay, so it appears that that is all the questions we had for today. I want to thank everyone again for attending the webinar today. I hope it was as educational for you all as it was for us here. And I want to allow Gwen with CCAA to maybe say some final words before we let you all go today.
Thank you so much, Michael. Once again, thanks to all the speakers and everyone that posed some questions online. We will be following up, now that the webinars are done, we'll be following up with quick email once the video recordings are ready, and any presentations and things that we can share with you, and then just some more information on CCAA as well. We do tend to invite USG, OPIC, and EXIM, and Commerce, and a couple of others to our events. So we will be keeping you posted on any other opportunities that you might have to meet with some of the speakers here or with other representatives from these agencies in the future. And we also do invite you to visit our website, t-caa.org, and just check out some of the other opportunities for other programs in the region that we are always happy to partner and share information on. So thank you again, and hopefully we'll be able to talk with some of you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gwen. And I just want to say a special thank you to Gwen and Sally, who couldn't be here today, and the CCAA team for co-hosting this webinar series with us. We look forward to our partnership with CCAA. And I want to say a final thank you again to my panelists, Peter, Allison, and my good friend Craig O'Connor. And again, thank you all for joining. Again, look out for further communications with the recording of the webinars as well as the bios. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Craig.